Welcome back. Before we begin, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and comment. When you do, it helps my channel grow. All comments are welcome. I look forward to your feedback. And now, Chad Fury and the Dragon Song Chapter 5, You're Under Arrest. While I was dialing my cell phone to call Ronnie, the phone rang. The display showed Chrissy's name. I choked. Oh my God, I never called Chrissy. I took a deep breath before answering the phone, and I spoke as cheerfully as I could. Hello, Chrissy. A very disturbed voice answered back through the phone. Chad, what's going on? You stood me up on Saturday. I called you 1,000 times Saturday and all day Sunday. And this morning I saw you tearing out across campus like the devil himself was after you. What's happening? I paused. Chrissy, I can explain. I had just lied and I knew it. I didn't have the foggiest idea how I could even begin to explain, but I kept talking. I had to go somewhere this morning, and I'm there now. Your last class is over at 4 today. I'll pick you up at your dorm and we'll have a nice dinner while I explain everything to you. Chrissy sounded terse as she replied, I don't think I want to go to dinner with you. The words stung in my ears. Chrissy continued, meet me at the student union at 4:30. We can talk there. Don't be late. I still tried to sound cheerful. Okay, Chrissy, I'll see you there. The call disconnected before I could finish my sentence. At least I had some time to think of what I was going to say to Chrissy. I drove back slowly. I wandered through the neighborhoods and meandered around the city streets while I thought. I went over the events of the last few days aloud, trying to see what sounded reasonable. I heard myself say, while I was getting my tattoo, I was drugged. That wouldn't work. How could I have been drugged? I didn't have anything to eat or drink at the tattoo parlor. And was there really something in the ink? I tried saying I met this girl at the tattoo parlor and she told me to take her out. I could imagine how well that would go over with Chrissy. I tried several other sentences. I was injected with something in my neck. And I was abducted by a bunch of women and tortured. Chad, I asked myself, who in their right mind would believe any of this? And how can you possibly tell Chrissy you were meeting another woman for a date when this happened? Maybe I could tell her I was sick. I think I can say that. That's okay, but what do I say next? Did I hallucinate being abducted? The bruises. I can show her the bruises on my wrists and the cut on my chest. I should start with that. That's something tangible, something she can't argue against. I can tell her I was chained up. But the problem is, I don't know if I believe it. Before I had my story sorted out, I was parked in my usual spot near the dorm. I got out of my car, looked at my watch, and started off toward the student union. It was a good 5-minute walk, and I took the time to continue working on my story. About halfway there, I felt something rub against my back. I reached my hand behind me and felt the gun. I panicked. Guns aren't allowed on campus. If I get seen with this, I could spend time in jail as well as be expelled. I adjusted my shirt and continued on, just hoping that the shirt wouldn't gap open. Chrissy was standing just inside the doors of the student union. I said hello, and she returned a very terse hello. We took a seat at a free table near the center of the room. Chrissy looked at me and spoke in very measured tones. Okay, Chad, tell me what's going on. Why did you stand me up? And why didn't you call me all weekend? I talked to your roommate and Kevin said you were out from Saturday afternoon until this morning. I looked at Chrissy with desperation in my eyes. Chrissy, I love you. You know I do. Chrissy looked away, took a deep breath, and let it out slowly. She turned back toward me and looked me in the eyes. Chad, darling. That was the most sarcastic use of the word darling that I had ever heard. Chrissy continued. Let's save talking about how we feel about each other until later. For the moment, let's focus on you. What happened this weekend? And what could have possibly prevented you from calling me? I swallowed hard. Chrissy. I paused and decided to show her the bruises. I looked her directly in her eyes as I extended my arm in front of her and pulled back the cuff on my sleeve. This is why. Take a look at my wrist. Chrissy replied, what about your wrist? She looked briefly at my arm and her expression never changed. The bruises, Chrissy. My wrists are bruised because I was in handcuffs. My legs are bruised too from being chained. I was chained to a chair in some kind of warehouse all weekend. Chrissy pursed her lips. Your wrist looks fine to me. Try again. I looked at my right arm. It was fine. There were no marks and no bruises. I checked my left arm. There was a faint red mark near my watch band, but that could have been caused by anything. I pushed my chair away from the table and looked at my legs. They were fine too. I blurted out, my chest. They cut my chest. I unbuttoned the top buttons on my shirt only to reveal normal, undamaged skin. Chrissy's anger showed. Please, Chad, get on with it. I don't want to play games with you. I pleaded. No, please. I was handcuffed and chained. Chrissy interrupted. By who? I replied with desperation in my voice. No, it's the truth. I was drugged, and I woke up in a warehouse, chained and surrounded by 20 or more women. Chrissy's eyes flashed. Well, that must have been real fun for you. Every man's fantasy. Chrissy, no, it wasn't like that. Just what was it like, Chad? Do I really want to hear this? Chrissy, they tortured me. How, Chad? They beat you and cut you and left those invisible bruises and scars? No, Chrissy, they sang. Well, they called it singing. It was more like howling and screeching. Chrissy stood up. Chad, don't call me. Don't call me ever again. You do whatever it is that you feel you need to do with your life, but do it without me. One piece of advice, though. Get some help. You need professional help. I stood up, leaned forward, and placed my palms flat on the tabletop. That's when it happened. My shirt hiked up in the back and gapped open to reveal my new gun. Before I could implore Chrissy to stay and listen, a female voice shouted from behind me, Gun! Gun! He's got a gun! Instinctively, I straightened up and turned toward the exit. There were already 3 men I recognized from the football team standing between me and the door. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a member of the university's finest. The campus police headed my direction. I raised my hands as the officer yelled, Freeze! I felt an overwhelming need for profanity, so I used some. First came the pat down, then my arms were pulled behind my back for the application of the silver bracelets. I heard the man say, You're under arrest for possession of a firearm on state property. You have the right to remain silent. Following the reciting of the Miranda rights, the officer made a call on his radio. Based on what I overheard of the conversation, I learned that a car was being brought around for me and I would soon be taken to the campus police office for questioning. The room was now filled with the buzzing of conversations and the artificial shutter clicks made by cell phone cameras. All I could think about was how frightening my future appeared. I did not know how to survive being in jail, and jail seemed to be definitely looming on the horizon. A campus patrol car arrived pretty quickly. I was led out of the building and maneuvered into the back seat of the car with the officer's palm on the top of my head and a firm grip on my left shoulder. I was struck by how uncomfortable it is to sit in a car seat with your hands cuffed behind you. I started to ask if the cuffs could be loosened, but then thought it was better if I didn't ask. From where I was sitting, I saw another officer enter the student union. He was probably there to take statements and talk to everyone who was willing to put their 2 cents in, and I was certain he would be talking to Chrissy. I couldn't imagine what Chrissy would tell the officer. All I had been able to tell her were bits and pieces of a wild-sounding tale. There was no telling what the story would sound like after she got through retelling it. We took a very slow ride to the campus police office. I was escorted into the building and into what looked like a makeshift conference room. The room was just big enough for a small table and 4 chairs. There were 2 other men already in the room. The officer who brought me in removed the handcuffs. A large black-haired man seated near the door introduced himself and invited me to take a seat on the opposite side of the table. I'm Officer Farley. You've met Officer Grant, and this is Officer Turley. My words hung in my throat. All I could do was nod as I took a seat in a metal folding chair. Officer Grant left the room and closed the door. I felt like a caged animal. I wanted to leave so badly that I sat there with my feet pointed toward the door. Officer Farley shifted in his chair before speaking again. "I'm told your name is Chad." I nodded. "Yes, sir." Officer Farley continued. "Chad, we need to understand what's going on here. So, Chad, just why did you bring a loaded gun into the student union?" My mind was racing, and my heart was pounding. I didn't have enough of my wits about me to know how to answer the questions being put to me. I spoke a little too softly. "I was scared, sir." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Scared? Scared of what or who?" I shook my head. "That's really difficult to say because I'm not sure." The officer looked puzzled. "You don't know what you're afraid of?" A drop of sweat ran down the end of my nose and I nervously brushed it away. I was in a bad situation over the weekend. There were people who tried to... My voice trailed off. I wanted to explain, I just didn't know how. The officer pressed me. "Do you want to tell me about it?" I swallowed hard. "I can't. I wish I could." Officer Farley tried to reassure me. "It's okay. You're safe here. We might be able to help. Go ahead and try. Tell us about the people. What did they try to do?" I shook my head. "I don't know. They tried to. I'm not sure what they tried to do. They tried to..." The words just hung in my throat. I was wondering if I had imagined the entire thing. The bruises were gone, and now I didn't know if they had ever been there. I had the tattoo on my arm that didn't prove anything. Not even to me. It wasn't just these officers who needed an explanation, I needed one too. I sat there in silence, unable to get a handle on any words. My face grew hot, and the pit of my stomach turned sour. My legs and arms felt like lead. I couldn't move with the weight of what was happening. I sat there quietly looking at the floor until I heard Officer Farley speaking again. "Chad, we have another problem. Officer Turley can explain." Officer Farley turned toward the blonde-haired man sitting quietly next to the wall. Officer Turley spoke. "Chad, I'm going to show you some emails that I've printed. I want to know what you can tell us about them." I had not noticed the papers laying face down on the table. Officer Turley turned them face up and pushed them my direction. I picked up the first page. My right hand was trembling and the page shook so much my eyes couldn't focus on the words. I laid the page on the table so I could read it. I didn't recognize anything there. The text was one long run-on sentence. The email mentioned holy wars, threats of blowing up buildings, and shooting people. I put that page aside and looked at the other pages. They were all very much like the first one I had read. I looked at Officer Turley and then Officer Farley. "I've never seen these before." Officer Turley spoke up. "There's been some strange activity over the weekend. Someone placed several backpacks and trash cans around the campus. The backpacks were all stuffed with newspaper. Do you know anything about that?" I told the truth. "No, sir, I don't." Officer Turley looked at me without any expression. "Chad, do you live here on campus or in a frat house?" I nodded. "Yes, sir, in the dorms, in Johnson Tower." "Chad, and your roommate is..." "My roommate is Kevin Kemp, sir." As Officer Turley finished writing that down, he asked, "And if we ask Kevin what you were doing this weekend, will he know?" I shook my head. "No, sir." "Why is that, Chad?" I looked away as I answered. "I wasn't at the dorm most of the weekend." "And where were you, Chad?" I knew the answer I was about to give was digging a hole I couldn't climb out of. "I can't say." Officer Turley put his pencil down. "Chad, you can't say or you won't say." I tried to control the panic in my voice. "I can't. I don't really know. I was in a warehouse, I think." My words trailed off. I decided to stop talking at that point. I realized every syllable was digging my hole deeper. From Saturday afternoon until Monday morning, I didn't have a clue where I was. Any description of what I remembered only made me sound like I was crazy. Officer Farley took over the conversation. "Chad, there's too much here that you can't seem to explain. I think it's best if we let some other people talk to you. I'm putting in a call to the sheriff's office." I don't know how much time passed after that. It could have been more than an hour before a sheriff's deputy came and put me in one of their cars to take me to the county jail. I don't think I moved during the entire ride. I just stared at the scenery passing by. I wondered how much of my life was going to be like this. From this point on, just how much was I going to be able to choose what I would do versus having to do what I was told? My life as I knew it was over. My heart sank even deeper when I realized I would have to face my mother. At least Dad never lived to see this, but Mom, how was Mom going to take this?